Hello, everyone. In this session, we will see how to execute a create SQL task. We will see how to do it in different use case scenarios. We will open the Visual Studio first and create the project. So we have created a new project. So we will go to the SSIS toolbox and we will drag the Execute SQL task. So when we double click on this Execute SQL task, we will go to the connections. We will have more connections here and we will select the OLEDB because we want to connect to the SQL Server instance. And now we will click on the new connection. And you can select the database from the SQL Server. Okay, now the connection is set up. Now I will go to the SQL statement. So we will first go to SQL source type. In the SQL source type, we will set it to direct and SQL statement option. We will write a create database command here. The name of the database is SSIS practice. At the same time, we will create a table. So to create the table inside the database, we have to use SSIS practice, that is use the database name. It is just like the way we write the SQL statements in SSMS. So whatever statements we write in SSMS, we can just copy those statements here as well. Now we will create a table. Sample table. So we will define the columns ID and name. We will also insert a record. So we will use this SQL task for various scenarios. If we want to execute a SQL dynamically, or to automate purpose, or to integrate, whichever way, if it's a SQL related task, we can use it and we can choose a SQL task, execute SQL task. And we will execute this. As you can see, it has been executed. When we execute it, we will open a connection into the SQL server. It will copy the entire SQL statements into their editor runtime engine and executes like in the SSMS. So we have gone to the progress part. So you can see everything is completed. Now we will go to the SSMS, whether the database is created or not. We will expand the tables and you can see the sample table and we will display the columns. So you can see the basic scenario of the execute SQL task. This is a very basic SSIS command. Now let's rename it to a basic task, basic SQL task. We will use another execute SQL task. We will again follow the same steps. So instead of selecting direct input, we will select the file connection. So this time it is file connection. In the file connection, we will create a file before we make the connection to the file connection. So because the file should be ready before the connection. Because we're trying to map a query in a file, or we have some records to be inserted in a file. So we want to insert the queries. We want to execute the queries by reading the file. It reads the file at the runtime, and it executes the commands that we have flat file. So let's make a file connection. Before that, we will prepare the file. So we'll go to the source files. So we will go to the source files and we will create a text file for SQL. So it's a folder for SQL insert files. Create a text file in that folder. The name of this file is insert sample table. So let's insert some records into this insert sample table file. We will open this. So here we have written use the SSIS practice, that's the database name. Then go insert into dpivot.sample table the ID, comma name, the values. We will insert one more record. Go is not really mandatory here. You can also remove if you want. We will start executing this. So let's map the file to that location now. We'll copy the resource. We will copy the source path. Let's go to the file connection and create a new connection. Browse, select the file. So the file connection is mapped, and then say OK. So the test file connection has been created successfully. All the connections that we are creating can be managed from the connection managers. If you want to change the connection, you can do that from here. Now let's save it and we will execute this project. It is executed successfully, and now we'll go to the progress and see what has happened. So it has been executed successfully without any warnings. We'll now stop it and then go to the SSIS database and execute the query. So this is another use case where we can use the Execute SQL task. We will again rename this to file connection. Now let's go to another use case. Execute SQL task. Let's again define the connection. We will choose SSIS practice and we will change it to variable this time. The source type is variable. Just like the we created the connection to a SQL flat file connection. Now read the text from the variable and it will execute the variable value at runtime. Let's define a variable before we do this. Right click in the designer and click on variables. And we will go to the variables. We'll create few variables here. The data type is string. We will write the value. We'll directly enter the value here, insert into the table. We will insert the next row here. We can also use expression to to form the to formulate the SQL query dynamically. So now we'll proceed. We will open the Execute SQL task and we select the variable that we created here, that is a SQL query, and say OK. And we will execute this. So it is executed successfully. Let's go to the progress and see if there are any warnings or errors. We will stop it and go to we'll execute the query from the SQL server. And as you can see, it is executed successfully. So now again, we will rename it. We'll now see another use case of the Execute SQL task. We will see how to map the result set of a query into the parameter mapping. We will try the result set property. In the result set, if we want to store the result of the SQL query in a object variable, then we will use the result set property. Let's see how to use it. So let's write a query where we can return a value. So let's write the query. We will copy the SQL query from the SQL server and paste it in the Visual Studio. I want to store this result set into a variable. I want to store the complete result set into a variable. So we'll click OK. In order to store this result set into a variable, we will choose the property result set and go to the single row or different options here. So since it is returning the full result set, we will choose full result set in this scenario. And when we select this full result set, we have to map that to a particular variable. Then only it will store the values to variables. So to map the full result set into a variable, we have result set section. So we will go to the result set and we will click on add. The result set name, because we are returning the full result set. It doesn't return a single row. So the result name will be 0 since it is returning full data set. And we will store it in a variable by creating it. The name of the variable will be SQL result. Value type will be object. Say OK and OK. And then we'll execute it now. It is executed now. And now how to see the data that we have that have been saved in the variable or not. If we don't see any errors, means it has stored the data in the variable. So this is how we can execute the execute SQL task. We will see another scenario now. Now, in this, we want to store a single row. So let's write a query for that. So select top one, say OK, and select single row from the result set and go to result set, create a variable. Since it is single row, we can map it into two different variables. One is ID, second one is name. Create a new variable for ID. We will do it for both ID and name. So we are currently doing for ID. So we have to specify the value 0. That is why you see this warning. Now let's go to the name. Now after this, we will execute the SQL task. So this is how we do the single row mapping. Like this, we will execute a few more SQL tasks. We will see how to use XML data type. Let's prepare the XML query. Generate it as an XML format. The function we have is to generate it as an XML format. The function that we have is select star. That is for the XML auto. It will automatically generate for the XML. We'll copy the query to the Visual Studio. We will select the result set as XML, and we will go to the result set and add the variables. So we have seen how to map the XML data type into a variable. We will bring another execute SQL task. This time, go to the OLEDB and select the SSIS practice. Go to the SQL statement. Now, what we're doing in this, we will map the variables to a SQL query. That is the parameter mapping. I want to return the execute SQL statements based on the parameters we pass. Want to map the variables to the SQL query. We want to execute the SQL statements based on the parameters that we pass. Select star from table where ID equals 1, ID equals 2. So the ID values will be mapped in the execute SQL parameter mapping. IDs and values will be mapped using parameter mapping. So we have to declare the parameter mapping. So let's see how to do it. Before going to SQL statement, first we have to make sure what connection type we are using for parameter mapping. If we use OLEDB, we have to follow a specific syntax. If we use other connections, then we have to follow the syntax related to those things. So let's see what syntax for OLEDB we have. So let's go to the SQL statement. So in the SQL, we will write select ID name from the table where ID equals question mark. So if we use question mark, if it is OLEDB connection to pass the parameter mapping for this variable ID. To use ADO connection, then we have to specify the variable name instead of the question mark. Now we will go to the parameters and click add. We will enter the values here. So ID, the name is ID, parameter value can be 0. The parameter size is not applicable to the integers. So we can use any size here, 0, 10, anything. It's applicable only to the string data types. Now, so here we have to choose 0 for the parameter. Since it is the first variable mapping, we have to define the order. This is not the actual parameter name. This is the order of the parameters. I have mapped only one parameter here. That is the first one. That one should be mapped as 0 because it starts with 0. This is how we have to map. Now let's execute this. So this is how we map a parameter to a query. Now let's see two parameters. In the query, we will write ID equals question mark and name equals question mark. Let's click on OK. And in the parameter mapping, the previous input direction is input, and click on add and select name. Now this is a string type. So we will choose var. So since it's a second parameter, we will choose 1. The direction of the parameter mapping is from left to right. The data is 200. The size is 200. Say OK and execute it. So this is our another use case scenario. Let's go to the next example. So what are we doing in this? I want to map expressions, variables into the SQL statements. So let's use the expression. In the SQL statements, go to the expressions. The property, we will choose SQL statement source. Select the SQL statement source and go to the expression. And here we can use any variable we want. It actually gives the same insert statement. So we can map using the expressions here. We use this kind of expressions when we want to modify anything in the variable. So to make it dynamic, if we store the value directly in the variable and if we execute that, that actually is not a dynamic functionality. We have to update the variable value at runtime to make it dynamic. And that is the dynamic way of executing. So that's where we use this expression. The expression, we actually update the expression with the dynamic values based on the parameters. We can update the expressions. We can use the replace function also, and many other functions. So we can check what all functions we have by clicking on the string functions. Then in the datetime functions, like this, you can explore the different functions supported here. So that is based on the requirement. Now say, okay, we have mapped the SQL. No need to map the other options. Let's execute this task. So no need to value any values directly to the SQL statement. It will be passed at the runtime. Let's rename it. We have many use cases for expressions. You can practice more and more to get familiar with the expression mapping. In our upcoming videos, we will also see many topics like how to use the stored procedures and all. So these are the various use case scenarios that we use in the SQL SQL task.